Hi, this is Grandma, and I'm reading The Iron Ring by Lloyd Alexander. And today we are going to be reading Chapter 9, Lost and Found. Kind of makes you wonder what was lost and what has been found. But before we start reading, I want to review a little bit. We have, last chapter was called A Miserable Bird, and we found out the miserable bird was Garuda, who was unhappy because, first of all, somebody shot an arrow at him. Not true. They were shot at the tree, and it scared him. Second of all, he's mad because now they have disrupted his nest. He claims that he is not a trash heap, as they call him, but that he is a noble bird. We will see. All right, lost and found. Yeah. At the end of that chapter, he says, "First you call me a buzzard, now a vulture," cried Garuda, so furious that he was quacking like a duck. "You don't know who you're dealing with. I'm an eagle." So, lost and found. "Eagle?" Hashcat slapped his knee and hooted with laughter. "What, did a wandering rishi lay a curse on you, as one did to me when I was human?" So that's what happened to his monkey ship," Miri said, apart to Tamar. "Somehow I'm not surprised." "Well, whatever you did, I'm sure you deserve to be cursed for it," snapped Garuda. "I'm an eagle now and always have been." The bird shook his wings and looked down his beak at Hashcat. "I'll have you know, in my better days they were, I served a mighty king." "As what?" Hashcat stuck out his tongue. "A feather duster?" "His trusted messenger," Garuda retorted with an air of shabby dignity. "No errand was too difficult or dangerous. One day, His Majesty sent me on a most important mission. A treacherous servant had stolen an extremely valuable gem and given it to a Rakshasa, an evil demon, in exchange for the gift of eternal life. You can see how precious the jewel was to be worth that sort of bargain. The Rakshasa did not keep his word." "They never do," put in Rajaswami. "When will people realize there's simply no dealing with them?" "Feel free to interrupt whenever you please," Garuda glared at Ashwara. "I'm only telling you the story of my life. As I was saying, where was I?" Garuda blinked and winked his eye. Yes, the servant came to a messy end. The Rakshasa and the jewel vanished. In time, my royal master learned the Rakshasa had hidden the gem in a mountain cavern, protected by a ring of fire. Who had enough strength even to reach that cavern, or, once there, the courage to risk the flames?" Garuda paused, glanced around. "I just asked a civil question. It's too much, I suppose, to hope for a civil answer." "You were the one," Miri said, with an encouraging smile. "The king sent you, of course. Then what?" "Thank you for your interest," said Garuda. "Yes, I went on my wings. They ache when I think of it. How long I flew over peaks, poking up at me like daggers through rain and hail and sleet and snowstorms." "All right," said Hashcat. "How long?" Garuda rolled his eyes. "I can't remember, but at last I found the cavern. And there was the gem in the midst of a circle of flames. Not for an instant did I hesitate. I plunged through. Oh, the pain, the pain! I could smell my feathers burning, my talons shriveling. But I snatched up the gem in my beak. Hard to believe such a small ruby could be worth so much. For a moment I wondered if it was the right one. No mistake. As I'd been told, it had a lotus flower carved on it." We've heard of this gem before. A red ruby with a lotus flower that now Tamar has. It was gifted to him by the Nagaraja. Okay. Tamar stiffened. He was about to interrupt, but Miri put a finger to her lips. Garuda went on. I flew from the cavern. The fire had scorched and blackened my golden plumage. My tail feathers were little more than a charred stump. No matter, I had served my king well, proved worthy of his trust, done as he commanded. Garuda shuddered and bowed his head. I had nearly reached the palace when another bird flew by, an ill-favored, ungainly creature who had the gall to mock me. What's this? He called. A plucked chicken ready for the oven? He kept up his taunts and jeers until I could stand no more. Goaded by pride and anger, forgetting the prize I carried, I opened my beak to answer insult with insult. I dropped the ruby, Garuda said in a choked voice. It fell into a mountain lake. I swooped down and dove into the icy water again and again. Soaked and freezing, I searched until I could search no more. I had lost the gem, past finding. I was too ashamed to face my master, so I never went back. I hid myself deep in this forest. Garuda broke off his account and gave way to sighs and moans. Oh, poor bird, Miri said. No wonder he's in such a state. I can help him set things right, Tamar said, while Miri stroked Garuda's ruffled feathers. Tamar reached into his jacket. Garuda, I have something to show you. What? Something else to aggravate me? Garuda snapped. Let me be. I don't want to see it. I think you do. Tamar drew out the ruby and held it glittering in his palm. Do you recognize this? Is it the one you lost? Garuda stared at the gem. For a moment, his beak opened and shut silently. Then he burst into furious squawks. Shma! That's it! How did you get your hands on it? Where? Stolen, I'm sure. You're keeping it for yourself. You're just tormenting me. A gift I didn't ask for and didn't want, Tamar said, ignoring Garuda's reproaches. It has followed a strange path back to you, but here it is. Carry it to your master. Your dharma will be whole again. Take it. That pays my debt to you. Oh, no, it doesn't, Garuda retorted. Miserable creature, Hashcat burst out. It's worth more than some frowsy nest. Correct, agreed Rajaswami. A most generous settlement. No, Garuda snapped his beak. What in my condition? Look at me. I hardly know what I'm doing from one day to the next. Sometimes I even forget how to flap my wings. Shma, I'm not the eagle I used to be. For certain, murmured Hashcat. I'd lose the jewel again before I was halfway to Mahapura. Garuda rattled on. Can you see me in those mountains? Me, alone, friendless, scorned. Mahapura? Tamar broke in, shaken to hear the name. Between the mountains Kumaru and Sumeru? Where else would it be? Said Garuda. Who's the king there? As I said, or did I say, Garuda replied, I think of him often. Sometimes I dream about him and see his kindly, wrinkled old face, his snow-white beard. I wish I could forget. The memory pains me too much. The king, oh yes, a great ruler, King Jaya. Tamar caught his breath. He glanced at Rajaswami. That's not the same one I diced with, yet one calling himself Jaya commanded me to his palace in Mahapura. He drew closer to Garuda. What more can you tell me of the king? I journeyed to see him. You can first explain to me what you're talking about, said Miri. As Tamar began to account, she listened more and more intently. When he finished, she said quietly, You told me none of this before. Who cares what he told or didn't tell? Who cares how or why a bunch of snakes got the ruby? Squawked Garuda. What about right now? You carry it for me. You're going to Mahapura anyway. That's the least you can do. You owe me that much and a lot more besides. You trust me with it? Said Tamar. Of course not, Garuda snapped back. I'll be keeping an eye on you every step of the way. There's a joyful prospect, said Hashkat. When Tamar agreed to hold the gem in safekeeping, Garuda seemed grudgingly satisfied. Miri did not. She beckoned for Tamar to follow her a little way across the clearing. I don't want his monkey ship eavesdropping on us, she said, leading him to the side of the huge anthill, its peaks and pinnacles head and shoulders taller than Tamar himself. You and I have something to settle. Yes, we do, Tamar said. He sat down at the foot of the ant castle. One thing first. Why did you leave the choosing? Why did you? It was for the best. You could have asked my opinion about that. What would you have said? Had you waited, replied Miri, you'd have found out. Tamar shook his head. I had no right to stay in the village. Do you think I didn't want to? I had no right to ask or offer anything. How could I? My life isn't my own. Do you understand that now? I understand you pledged your life to someone who might not even exist. Yes, I understand that very well, and it makes no sense to me. Well, to me it does, Tamar insisted. At first I doubted. I thought it could have been a dream. Now Garuda talks about a realm called Mahapura and a king named Jaya. A king nothing like the one you came to you in Sundari. Well, that puzzles me, said Tamar. I don't know what to make of it. I'm still not sure, but sure enough to keep on with my journey if I'm right. If you're right, Miri bit her lip and looked away. You'll find your death waiting for you at the end of it. You forget I'm a warrior. We learn how to die. Tamar took Miri's face between his hands. I promised only my life to Jaya, not my heart. Before Miri could answer, Hashkat scuttled up. You too come, better not stay here. Let us alone, will you? Miri burst out. Can't you see we're talking? Oh, I'll go away, Hashkat shrugged his shoulders. I don't think they will. The monkey drew Tamar from the wall of the anthill and pointed across the clearing. From the distant fringe of trees, 4 riders galloped toward them. Quick! They've seen us, but if we run for those woods... Why should we do that? Asked Tamar. They have swords. So do I. We don't know who they are. Then I'll find out. Stay by Rajaswami. Miri will go with you. Tamar stepped away from the hill and waited for the horseman to come closer. Though Hashkat had scurried off, the girl was still there. Go with the monkey, as I said. Are you the king of Sundari again? A royal command? Well, they're warriors. I know how to deal with them. They're men. I know how to deal with them. By now, the horsemen had reined up and dismounted some paces away. One beckoned and called out, You, huntsman, here. Lord Khanna wants to see you. He sees me. Tamar folded his arms. The man scowled and muttered something to the tallest of the riders, who was richly decorated in embroidered vest and kilt. A silk scarf draped casually over his shoulders, with long, fair hair held by a gold headband, an arrogant arch to his high-bridged nose. He was, Tamar recognized, not only a warrior, but a noble of highest station. Lord Khanna, as Tamar knew he must be, stood for a moment studying him with an air of amused contempt. Then the attendants following, he took a few steps forward. Ashwara is in sorry state, remarked Khanna, looking Tamar up and down. If he seeks help, from a common huntsman, much less a Shudra herd boy. Now, Shudra is the lowest caste possible, and I think they're referring to Miri. What have you done with him? Khanna's voice hardened. Are you meeting him here? Is that why you signaled? We saw the smoke, as anyone could for miles around. That was not clever of you. Tamar replied coldly, we signaled no one. I have never heard of this Ashwara, whoever he is or whatever state he may be in. He's lying, muttered one of the attendants. Perhaps, said Khanna, perhaps not. These folk are too simple-minded to be good liars, or they might be excellent ones. Tamar flushed. I told you the truth. Now you tell me who you are. I hear accusations in your words, and I have been called a liar, which I do not accept. Temper your own words, huntsman. Khanna's chin went up. You speak above your caste. Respect your betters. I do, replied Tamar, paying no heed to Miri, nudging him to hold his tongue. When I meet them. We were only burning some vines, Miri hastily put in as Khanna's face tightened. We have no idea what you are talking about. We are on our way north in company with a devout Brahma. Khanna, turning close attention to Miri, clapped his hands and gave a drawling laugh. Herd boy! No, by heaven, a gopi! Let's have a better look at this creature. If it were properly groomed and rid of the cow barn stink, even I would make room for it in my kennel. Your kennel is, no doubt, already crowded, Miri answered, tightening her grip on Tamar's arm as he angrily tried to lunge forward. I prefer cows to dog fanciers in any case. Ooh, a quick tongue, all the better. Khanna hesitated, then sighed, shook his head. Unfortunately, I have no time for pleasure. Your loss, Miri said, not mine. I seek a trader, not a passing amusement. Khanna stood for some moments studying Miri and Tamar and then waved a hand. These are not Ashwara's people, he told an attendant. They interest me no longer. Come. Hold. Tamar flung free of Miri's grasp. We are not finished, you and I. Idiot, Miri whispered. What are you doing? What I must. Let be, you fool. Walk away. I have been thought a liar, accused falsely of what I know nothing. Tamar's hand went to his sword as he faced Khanna. You have spoken ill to a woman. No affront goes unanswered, and so I answer yours now. Kashatiya, arm yourself. A ferocious fellow indeed. Khanna raised his eyebrows in mock terror, and a vexing one. Let me teach you better conduct. Khanna suddenly swung up his arm and with the back of his hand struck Tamar full in the face. There, boy, study that lesson. Tamar snatched out his sword, unmindful of the blood streaming from his mouth. Your men will stand away, he said between clenched teeth. You and I only, in single combat, by the warrior's code. You challenge me? I accept no challenge from the inferiors. I do not fight them. Khanna drew his blade. I slaughter them. And remember the other day I said about cliffhangers? Well, this is a cliffhanger. It is the end of this chapter, and we can't find out if he actually slaughters Tamar until the next chapter. And the next chapter is called Ashwara. So I think we're going to find out who this Ashwara is that Lord Khanna is after. Tamar flung Miri behind him. Khanna's men had drawn their blades. Tamar crouched, his glance darting from warrior to another, his sword point flickering. Which of you, he cried, come. Khanna himself was first to spring forward. His sword hissed in a long, slicing stroke. Tamar caught its edge on the hilt of his blade, then threw himself against the Kshatriya, jolting him back. One of the warriors leaped past Khanna to thrust at Tamar's face, while the others attacked his open flank. Tamar spun around, whirling his blade in a flashing circle. Rajaswami clapped his hands to his head and stammered unheeded protest. Hashkat, meanwhile, went bounding toward the anthill. Teeth bared, he pummeled one of Khanna's retainers about the head and shoulders. The warrior, more astonished than hurt by this onslaught from a monkey nearly as big as himself, swung his blade, missed widely, then kicked out to send Hashkat to the ground. Garuda, screeching at the top of his voice, flew back and forth, beating his wings and pecking at the assailants. Khanna had stepped into the fray again, but Miri scooped up a handful of loose dirt and gravel and threw it with all her strength into his face. Darshan had taught him well, but Tamar's opponents were more seasoned, craftier Kshatriyas, nor had he reckoned on them breaking the warrior's code by setting on him all at once. His skill counted little against sheer weight of numbers, and he was growing arm-weary, fending off attacks from every side. Against all honor, one of Khanna's men launched a blow at Miri. Raging, forgetting the others, Tamar leaped in front of her and furiously beat the blade aside. Another of Khanna's retainers seized the chance to spring at Tamar, but the man stiffened as though frozen in mid-stroke. Eyes staring, mouth agape, he dropped the blade and plucked at the chakra, the sharp-edged iron discus thrown with all force to lodge in his chest. "Khanna! Khanna! Face me!" From the edge of the clearing ran the man who had flung this deadly missile. He was tall, big-framed, in deerskin vest and kilt. His tawny hair hung about his shoulders. His golden eyes blazed. Sword raised, he strode past the fallen warrior, making straight for Khanna. Leaving Tamar where he stood, the remaining attendants sprang to challenge the stranger. Before Tamar could help him, the newcomer swung a deep cutting blow at one end at the same instant, sent the other sprawling. Khanna raced to mount his horse. The attendants, one bleeding heavily, stumbled to their own horses and galloped after him. The stranger made no attempt at pursuit and was about to turn away when Tamar approached him. "I thank you for your help." Tamar pressed his palms together. "Who are you to have risked your life for us?" "I think," he added, "you are called Ashwara." The man's lion eyes glittered. "Yes." "Also called a traitor." Ashwara smiled bitterly. "When a man does a crime against another, what better way than to cry treachery? It is a balm for his conscience." "Khanna accused us of signaling you," Tamar said. "Why? It was not us, but you that he was seeking." "And found me," said Ashwara. "He knows where I am, which is more than he knew yesterday. I regret that. It makes my task more difficult." "I too saw the smoke and wondered what caused it," Ashwara went on. "You and your friends seemed no threat to me, and I would have gone my way when Khanna and his people set upon you. In all honor, I could not have let him kill you. He would have spared none of you, not even the Brahmin." "We are all in your debt," Tamar said. "You did us a service, traitor or not." "Judge what I am when you know me," Ashwara said. "I already know you're very quick at killing people," said Miri. "Only my enemies," Ashwara replied. "As for that, one duty remains." He glanced at the warrior on the ground. "I took his life. I will not disgrace his death." The tawny-haired man bent and lifted the figure as if it weighed nothing and carried it beyond the trees. Miri watched until he disappeared into the overgrowth. "He frightens me a little," she said in a low voice. "I don't know what to make of him. He kills a man without batting an eye. Then he tenderly concerned for his body. I have a feeling he draws trouble like a honeypot draws flies." "He's in worse trouble now," Tamar said. "He put himself at risk because of us. If he hadn't stopped to help, and if you hadn't challenged Khanna, be that as it may, my dear Gopi," Rajaswami said, "he must look on the bright side. We are missing no bodily parts or essential organs and have survived undamaged." "Speak for yourself, you silly Brahmin," cackled Garuda. "What about me? Harassed, aggravated, put upon." "We're grateful to you," Tamar began. "You did your best for us." "For you not?" snapped the bird. "For my ruby? Suppose you'd been chopped to pieces. What would that leave me? Suppose they'd taken the ruby from your horribly mangled cadaver. A fine fix I'd be in." "So would we all," Miri turned to Tamar. "That's one thing. The other is, we shouldn't have been in a fix to begin with, if only you'd kept your mouth shut." "How could I? He offended you, insulted me, struck me by the warrior's code." "Yes, well, my code is use common sense. You should have just walked away. Your warrior's honor might have got us all killed. As it is, there's one man dead." "Two, in fact," put in Ashwara, who had come back to join them. "The second one has his death wound. He will not live out the day. It is my fault. I am sorry." "And should be," said Miri. "Sorry I did not slay them all," Ashwara continued to Miri's dismay. "Khanna dishonored himself when he did not stand against me. I would have pursued him, but I've already been too long delayed. No matter, he counts little, and there will be another time. But now let me see closer who has turned me off my path." Ashwara folded his arms and looked around with curiosity. "A bird of some sort." "Eagle," said Garuda. "And a remarkably large monkey. A charming young gopi disguised as a herd boy. A huntsman who fights like a warrior." "We already know who you are," put in Miri, "which is more than we can say about you." "It's no secret." Ashwara pressed his palms together and inclined his head toward Miri. "I am the king of Ranapura." Okay, so now let's go back to our map, which is right here. And we see that they have gone this way and up the river, and then they've come back down. They've gone through the forest. And right here is where they are at the anthill. And Ranapura is up here. Up here is Mahapura, which is where they want to go. And Ramapura is right here. But I'm thinking that we're going to have some more adventures on the way, because there's already a place called Ashwara. And we have some other places on the other side of the river. And we have a cave. We have a lot of places, lots more adventures to go. All right. So, amazing! Hashkut clapped his hands. "Yet another king." "Be quiet, your royal monkeyship," Miri said. "I want to know why this one's hiding in a forest." "Well, for much of it, I blame myself." Ashwara bent his long legs and set his back against the anthill. "For some time there had been whisperers that my kinsman, Lord Nahusha, was scheming to seize my kingdom for himself. I turned a deaf ear, refusing to believe them. Nahusha was my blood. He had sworn allegiance to me, Ashwara went on, that he would break Dharma, forfeit sacred honor by treachery, impossible. Yet, as I found out only later, he had promised lands and riches to neighboring princes if they would support his plot. He turned many high offices and ministers against me as well. At the end, he sought to slay my 2 brothers and myself. He dared even that, Tamar said. A Kshatriya and your own kinsman? Even that, Ashwara nodded grimly. Nahusha, all smiles and loving concern, offered us a pleasure cottage on his estate. He urged us to take our ease there, hunt in his park, boat on his lake, enjoy his open-handed hospitality a little while. Unwittingly, my brothers and I accepted this poisoned generosity. Ashwara's golden eyes flashed as he continued. Nahusha had made the house a fire trap, soaked the roof, walls, and rafters with oil and wax. Khanna, that's the guy that we just ran into, Nahusha's nephew, willingly agreed to set it ablaze while we slept. A loyal servant warmed us in time. The cottage burned to ashes, but we escaped. We went into hiding, knowing that Nahusha would murder us if we were found. He crowned himself king of Ranapura and occupied my city with his troops. Since then, he has ruled by terror and torture. Those who so much as murmur protest are imprisoned or slain. Of his own officers, the one who urged even some small measure of moderation were put in a slow death. I have heard that Nahusha himself watches with pleasure as they die in agony. I have heard as well that he seeks to spread his rule among Ranapura. No kingdom may call itself truly safe. This is evil on top of evil, Tamar said. No man of honor can allow it. Nor will I, Ashwara said. My brothers and I rallied what troops we could. Also we journeyed, seeking help from other kings. When Nahusha learned of this, he proclaimed me a traitor. Ashwara smiled bitterly. Having stolen my throne and tried to burn me to death, he accused me of plotting against him. A Kshatriya's sacred honor? Miri said under her breath. It seems more a matter of convenience. Nahusha sent searchers to find and kill us, Ashwara went on. We have eluded them. Until now, Khanna has seen me. He will carry word to Nahusha, and meantime, I have my own task. Ashwara stood and softly whistled. A black stallion trotted from the woods and came to muzzle his master's shoulder. I ride to Muktura, a few days north, Ashwara said. I must treat with King Bala and persuade him to join forces with me. I've already spent too long following roundabout ways to keep Nahusha's warriors off my trail. I can delay no more. You hindered yourself by helping us, Tamar said. No debt may go unpaid. Ask of me what you will. Oh, your intention is honorable, Ashwara said, but how shall a lone huntsman aid my call? No huntsman, exclaimed Hashkat. He's the king of Sundari. Ashwara narrowed his eyes at Tamar. Truth? How can this be? Ashwara listened closely while Tamar explained his circumstance. A strange tale and not a happy one. What to make of it? I'll give you my own opinion, said a muffled voice. The anthill's high earthen rampart stirred and cracked. From the breach, a pair of sharp gray eyes peered out, then a broad face, wide-browed, stubble beard, clotted with dirt and sand. The man broke a larger opening, thrust out his head, shook his burly shoulders, and stepped clear of the anthill. Well, who do you think that is? Is this another character in this novel? I'm beginning to think that this is kind of that Tamar is creating an army of his own, of people who have been rejected, or people who have had trouble, and they are going to be fighting beside him. But meanwhile, who is this anthill man? Do you think he's king of the ants? Seem to have a lot of kings going on here. Or do you think he's someone else? Well, again, another cliffhanger. And we will find out in chapter 11, The Choosing. Bye-bye.